Hey everybody, this is Joe Haber from Tomahawk's restaurant in Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania, here in Minneapolis this weekend, doing a handful of different things with the WAMNI and the Indigenous Food Lab. But today, we're here at the Food Lab making some turkey meatballs in a green sage sauce. So to start this turkey meatball recipe, we're gonna start with some ground turkey. Turkey is such a great protein to work with. I find that it's a dead stand-in for ground pork. And so we're going to mix up this turkey meatball filling in a similar style that we would if we were gonna be making maybe like a Chinese dumpling or something like that. This is some leaner turkey. I think it's like a 98.2, but you can use whatever you have on hand. I'm just gonna give a little seasoning here of some salt and some sumac as well. So the first thing that we're gonna do is break down a zucchini. The real driving force behind this recipe is a way to use up as many of these little green vegetables as we possibly can. They're in abundance in the summer. You get so many of them, and even as a seasoned cook, I still from time to time wonder, what do you do with giant zucchinis like this? And so we're gonna make a bunch of them disappear into this recipe. Here actually we didn't find a box grater right away, but that's actually okay. We're going to instead use the molcajete to break these vegetables down into a puree that we can mix into our meat. So we'll go ahead and start to work to do that. We'll add a little salt to help this process get going. So while we're breaking down this zucchini here, you just want to kind of start to burst these little pieces against the side of the molcajete and get this mixture down and smashed. We do this all the time out at Tomahawk's, our restaurant in Pennsylvania, where we're cooking our best effort at Mohawk food. I grew up in a Mohawk family. My mother is Mohawk. The ingredients in our pantry and the foods that we make down there are very close to my heart. So we were really known for our tacos, making fresh tortillas. We do a venison chorizo taco. We do a smoked turkey taco, a mushroom taco. Beautiful. Now we have our crushed zucchini. We can add that into our turkey here. We'll add 2 eggs to this mixture, and then also a couple of scallions. You could also take all this, your eggs, your zucchini, your scallions, and drop it all into a food processor and blitz it up into a food processor if you like. That's totally fine too. It's quite fun to smash that zucchini. I absolutely love to cook, and one of the reasons that really draws me to it is just little stuff like that. I get a ton amount of joy out of doing something like smashing up a zucchini in a molcajete. I've never done that before quite like that. It's a pleasurable experience that I'll never forget here at the Food Lab, and gonna make these meatballs more special than any that I've made before. Last thing that we need now for our meatball mixture here is we're just going to add a cup of some masa harina in place of breadcrumbs. This is a gluten-free recipe. We work with corn pretty exclusively, so I find that masa harina does a great job of standing in for a lot of wheat-related items. There's some things that it can't do. For a meatball recipe, it's gonna work just fine. So this yellow masa harina from Hacienda is awesome. You can buy it here at the Indigenous Food Lab. It's a great item to have in your pantry. You can make tortillas with this. You can do all sorts of different things. Here we'll add about a cup to our mixture as well. And basically what we're looking for with this meatball recipe is we want to get the texture of our eggs and our vegetables and this masa about to the same texture as what the meat is. So I'm gonna kind of like work all of these items off on the side of the bowl here and just kind of mix them around. So what we want to do now is we want to mix this meat and this mixture around and around and around to kind of get all the proteins to start working in the same direction. And we're going to help improve the texture of the meatball by doing this step. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Again, if you wanted to, at this part of the process, pull out like just like a little cake mixer or something like that, and if you're doing a big batch, these batch out really nice. We're doing 3 pounds of turkey in this batch here. Is a pretty good size recipe, but if you were gonna do even more than this, just get a stand mixer and you'll save yourself a little bit of shoulder soreness here. But I'm gonna go ahead and start to mix this around and get the texture that we're looking for here. I'm gonna add just a little oil to this too. And now go until your shoulder can't stand it anymore. Ooh. Give me a second. This is always like my least favorite part of this recipe. I'll do this at the restaurant, we'll make like big batches. And like I said, sometimes I'll bust out the hand mixer, but other times I'm like, I'll just do it with a fork. And oh man, but that's good. I mean, I'm built like this, you know. I come from a background of iron workers, so that's like my Mohawk heritage. My grandfather was a Mohawk iron worker. His father was a Mohawk iron worker. My uncles, all the men on my mother's side of the family were Mohawk iron workers, local 361 out of New York City. And then even my dad, who's non-native, was also an iron worker as well. I'm no stranger to hard work and putting in a lot of effort. It's kind of built into my DNA, so I don't mind. This meat now has like a bouncy kind of texture to it when I poke at it. And that's what we're looking for. It's kind of like, you can almost like see the striations in the meat of these proteins now have been kind of worked into a similar direction. And it's just gonna help provide a better texture for these meatballs and help keep them nice and juicy. So this is what you're looking for, this kind of bouncy texture. Now you could put this down into a container, refrigerate this for a day or two before you're ready to actually make your meatballs. Prepped out ahead, super convenient. Good food every day is hard. It's made easier when you can have a little foresight and prep things out for yourself. All right, so now we're gonna portion out our meatballs. We're gonna use a little ice cream scoop, just some water. Water is your friend when working with ground meat. It's gonna keep it from sticking to anything. It's gonna let it move around a little bit more easily. And so I'll even get a little bit on my hands here. Don't be afraid to get dirty. We'll wash our hands afterwards, we'll be just fine. And so now we're gonna go ahead and we'll just pull these off the side of the bowl and portion them out onto our sheet pan. We're just gonna bake this sheet pan off in the oven. For this sauce that we're making, I like baking them, and it's just super simple, easy way of cooking. We'll bake them at 350 for, oh man, just 15 minutes or so, just until they're cooked through on the inside is all that we're trying to do here. I didn't go to cooking school. I'm not formally trained to do any of this. I'm an X-ray tech, actually, is what I went to college for. But while I was in college, I started to cook for myself because I quickly realized that the closest, most direct line between you and some really exceptional food is usually making it yourself. So I just started making food myself at home, feeding myself and my roommates while I was in college. And that was really the beginning of my cooking career, was cooking for my friends and myself to feed myself in college. So we're gonna start breaking down a handful of our ingredients here. We'll use some leek, we'll use some shallot. Of course, these zucchinis, like we said, we're trying to get rid of those. We'll get a little bit of onion in there. I like to kind of spread out the ingredients. If we pull from a lot of different places, it doesn't put the weight so much all on one ingredient to do all the work. So we just washed our leeks a little bit there. They get a little bit of dirt inside their layers. So we'll go ahead and just take some time. And during this part of the recipe is always a good time to kind of just breathe for a second, look at your ingredients, get to know them, just spend some time with them. You know, they're beautiful. They smell good. They need a little bit of love to get them up to speed, and so we won't short them that at all. We'll take our time to really just kind of think about what we're doing with them, set our intention. They're going to help nourish us and our loved ones, and thank them for that. You know, I'm thankful every day for our ingredients. They do sustain us, and that's never lost on me. You know, one of the biggest complaints I hear about these zucchini, especially my kids, my goodness, talk about the texture of it. If you cook these too much, they get to be soft. And instead of, again, taking that as a negative quality, we're going to turn it into something positive for us. Instead of saying, oh man, these things get so soft, the texture, I say they get creamy. Creamy is a texture that we're always looking to achieve, especially working with a pantry that we don't use dairy at all at the restaurant. So I'm always looking for ingredients that provide that creaminess without having to use dairy. The same way that an eggplant for a dip like baba ganoush or something like that gets to be real creamy and is nice. These zucchini go the same way when they get cooked down. So we're gonna go ahead and cook them down along with all these alliums here and some other seasonings as the foundation for this green sauce to go with our meatballs. We'll add a nice bit of oil to our pan here. That's gonna help kind of emulsify all this sauce together once we've got it going. And we'll just add all this to our pan. If you pick up a little color, no problem. Don't worry about it. It's your sauce, it's your food. It's gonna be delicious anyway. That was one of the things, one of the real moments when I was young, learning how to cook. I always thought cooking was so much more mysterious than it is. I thought I was going to burn the house down at a moment's notice, but turns out if you've got a recipe as a framework and you just do what it says or get it kind of close, everything is going to be just fine. And at the end, maybe it's not exactly like the picture, but it's still going to be real delicious, and you'll have made it yourself, for yourself and your family, and that's special. A little sage here too. Let this sage kind of sing in the sauce flavor. Sage can be kind of pungent just on its own, but I find that if you cook it a bit, it mellows the flavor, and then you can really add a lot of it to dishes, and it's not so overwhelming, and it's quite pleasant, I think. All right, and then we're gonna take down these zucchini and get them into this pan as well. I'll go into like some smaller pieces just to help the process along. No real rules for this part of it. A lot of lively energy here at the Midtown Global Market in Minneapolis. It's really fun to see and hear and be a part of. I think food likes to be around lively energy, and that's certainly what we got going on here. So don't mind the noise there. You just follow along here with us as we keep going. Season always as you go. We'll give these some salt. That'll help break them down, pull the moisture out as well. Here at the Food Lab, they have all sorts of fun spices and things to work with. We have some dried ramps, and so that's perfect, right up our alley for this kind of thing. If you had anything at home that you wanted to incorporate in, you can get like a little bit of your personality worked into this now. We have also some of this hoja santa. It's really wonderful, almost like sassafras-y, kind of earthy, a little sweetness to it though. Really unique, but it's gonna work again also really, really nicely right in with this sauce too. We'll just let that cook in there. And then we have a little bit also of this spiceberry. This is another ingredient I've just introduced to today, almost like black pepper with like a little allspice or something in it as well. So we'll add a little bit of that too. So we're just letting this sauce kind of build its flavors now. So sometimes the splash of water does not hurt at all. Honestly, don't ever be afraid to use water. I was afraid with putting water into recipes for a long time for some reason. I felt like it was going to make the recipe bland or something like that. Like it was gonna make it less flavorful, but that's just some nonsense, really. It's become, honestly, like one of my favorite ingredients. You don't always need to have stock or cream or some other liquid like white wine or whatever to work in. Let the ingredients do the talking for themselves. They have plenty of flavor. Don't worry about that. And all these other wonderful aromatics in here are all slowly cooking down, getting ready to make a beautiful sauce for these turkey meatballs here. We have some wild rice here on the back burner. We just gave it a quick rinse, and we'll just put it in a pot of water with some salt, a little salt to season. I added about, I don't know, maybe like a half a cup or so of water to this as it's been cooking. You can see the caramelization on the vegetables. If you start to see them picking up a little bit of color, go ahead and add that water as we just get everything soft. And that's really what we're looking for here. Is the name of the game is soft. When these zucchini start to get kind of translucent, just like the onions, and you can mash them with your rubber spatula pretty good, then you know that you're on your way. Always look for texture, for seasoning, for flavor. Those are gonna be your North Stars to guide you to the nice bite of food that you're looking for, not necessarily what some guy told you on a video or whatever and you saw them do it. Listen to your food, listen to your own intuition when you're cooking. It's, again, for you, and you know how you like it. The last thing that we'll do now for this sauce before we blend it is we'll just throw in a nice pile of whatever kind of greens that you've got around. We have a nice pile of arugula here today. That's gonna be great. This is just gonna add, again, a little bit more flavor. Whenever we can add more vegetables to anything, that's always good. And it's gonna really just help that green color pop. So we're just gonna let these greens wilt out just a bit. All right, so we've got our vegetables ready to go into the blender to make our sauce here. What we're gonna do is we'll just take all of this and go right in here. All that goodness. All right, I'm gonna add probably about another cup of water to this so it could puree nicely smooth. It's not too thick in the blender. Let that get going a little bit on low, and then we'll bump it up to high. And we're just gonna let this go until it's totally smooth and nice and creamy. Usually about a minute. I'm gonna pop this open. We're just gonna take a look. We'll check for texture, seasoning. It's nice and rich. Of course, taste always as you're going. We'll go ahead. Wow, that's really good. That's pretty spot on, actually. I don't know if I'll taste it again once we add a little bit of water, because we can kind of change the seasoning as we do that, but that's spot on. Added a little bit more water. I'm just gonna bump that on to incorporate it one more time here. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt just to make up for that water that we added to keep our seasoning in balance there. And now we've got our sauce. All right, we got our meatballs out of the oven about 15 minutes at 350. You could really do any kind of sauce with these kinds of, with this recipe. Instead of using our summer green zucchini, you can use another, you could use another version of our Three Sisters with those squash and do a nice roast squash type of sauce. Would be really, really nice as well. We strained out our wild rice here. Real beautiful hand-harvested wild rice. All you're looking to do is just waiting for those little seeds to bloom open, and you can start to see they kind of curl, they get a little fluffy and open right up, and that's just what we're looking for. just nice, fluffy wild rice. Wild rice is done, meatballs done, sauce is done. Let's bring it all home here. Again, I just love to cook. This is one of my favorite parts, pouring sauce onto things like this. It's just so much fun. We worked really hard for this moment. So we'll go ahead and just douse these meatballs in this really nice sauce here. So here are our turkey meatballs, swimming in this wonderful green sauce that we made. We got 3 zucchinis out of our pantry. We'll grab a plate. We're gonna just go ahead and do a nice pile of some wild rice here. Plate it up with some nice saucy turkey meatballs. I'm just gonna add a little garnish to this to dress it up and make it as pretty as it tastes. Punchy radishes will be perfect for our savory green sauce. So a little radish slaw here. And then I'll just add a little scallion also to kind of drive that home. And so now we've got our turkey meatballs with green sage sauce and wild rice. All right, can you just tell me again your name and what brings you to market today?
I'm Brianna. I'm here to meet a friend. I came down from St. Cloud, actually.
And do you come to this market frequently?
Just when I'm meeting her.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, you picked a good day, and so if you like, we can try some food, and you can tell me what you think.
Sounds good.
Okay.
It is good.
A lot more. You get a lot of sweetness from vegetables. We didn't add any sugar or any sweetness to this dish.
To the sauce?
But just the cooking down of veg will add a natural sweetness here. Like I said, we've got a whole pile of arugula, a half an onion, scallions, shallots, 3 zucchini in this recipe as a whole. So although there's no actual vegetables we're eating, we're getting a ton of veg.
It's delicious. I don't know. The sauce is good. I love wild rice. And usually when I make meatballs, I don't use turkey, but it's a good idea.
Well, thank you, Brianna. Thanks for trying our food. Thank you all for watching and following along as we made our turkey meatball recipe here today.